So, Merry Christmas. Hope you all are enjoying the holidays. Figured, since I'm probably not going to be able to see any more movies, and funny enough, I've seen a total of 21 movies in 2021, probably the most I've seen in a while. Yes, I wrote it down, because I was going to fucking forget, because I'm a fucking idiot who hates himself, so. Anyway, yeah, so let's talk about this. Now, as always, this is my list. If you think a movie should have been higher or lower or not at all, that's totally fine. I'm always excited to hear what you guys think. This is just my personal favorites of the list. Although I'm pretty sure some of you can already guess what my number one is from the thumbnail, but I'm sometimes I'm just not creative. Anyway, but yeah. So let's get started with let's get started from, of course, we're going top 10, obviously. God, it is I hate being me sometimes. So number 10, let's get started with number 10. Now, number 10 is probably like it was going to be on the list in any way. Like, no matter what, this was going to be on the list in some capacity. And that is Godzilla vs. Kong. You may be thinking, Godzilla vs. Kong at the bottom. It's 10 I picked 10 movies out of 21. That says something. And Godzilla vs. Kong, like I said, in one way or another, was going to be on this list for a multitude of reasons. It's a movie we didn't think we were going to get. It was delayed for a while. And it was the first movie I saw back in theaters, even though I did technically see it on HBO Max when it first premiered, and then the same day I saw it in theaters. And being back in a theater experience with that movie was really good. Like, there was a great energy to it. I'm glad I got to see it in theaters, and I really enjoyed it. Is it stupid? Yeah, but you could say that for a lot of Godzilla and kaiju movies in general. Is there glaring problems with it? Yes. Is there, looking back, the fight sequences are really the best part of the movie. And yeah, say what you want, but this movie, you could say that this movie is the real savior of cinema, because this one really got, made a ton of money. And not only that, like, it's re-sparked that whole thing of putting movies back in cinema, because it was of the numbers it made. So yeah, and being the G fan that I am, yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was just nothing but fun right here. So Godzilla vs. Kong is at number 10. Number 9. Moving on to number 9. Yeah, I do have it written down, like I said. Number 9. Raya and the Last Dragon. Raya and the Last Dragon surprised me, and it was a movie I was really excited to see. And it did not disappoint. It does have a lot of the Avatar elements to it. But it is a lot of fun. I think the cast is really solid, and I do kind of hope that it does get an animated series, like a lot of what Disney does with these movies. They do tend to make a lot of animated series, and I think the world of Kumandra really lends itself to a lot of like lore and world building for that show. I mean, for a TV show. So Raya was a lot of fun. I love this is probably the most action-centric movie I've seen in a while since Treasure Planet or Atlantis from a Disney movie. So yeah, this was another movie that when I saw it, I was like, okay, this one is going on the list. So anyway, yeah, so Raya and the Last Dragon. Moving on now to number 8, The Eternals. Eternals was interesting because I didn't have a lot of expectations for this movie, but then it took so many twists and turns. And it really is, like I've said, is that if Marvel Studios is going to keep continuing post-Endgame, they got to get weird, and they got to take chances. And this movie was both out there and it took chances, and I think did it falter in some of those points? I do think it did. I think it did falter in some points, but I still enjoyed it. I think, and also I'm not the biggest Eternals guy, so I think it did well for what if it got me. Like a guy who knows jack shit, for a Marvel guy who knows jack shit about Eternals, that's literally everyone, I think it did its job very well. It told a story that was fascinating and took some routes that I thought was what were interesting. I think the cast is really solid, and yeah, I think and I don't get why I do understand some of the reason for the dislike, but I don't get the outright hate. Oh, right, because it's so it's multicultural and like our main protagonist who is white turns out to be the bad guy. Oh, right, that's what I'm kidding. I'm Yep. So Eternals, yeah, it was all right. I'm actually looking forward to seeing it again on Disney Plus, and I'm hoping to see more of the Celestials in the MCU. Which I think anyone who knows Eternals is like, oh right, the Celestials, we have that because of them, and and it does open the door to a lot of stuff. I guess I can talk about this because the movie's been out for a while. Is that we do find out that voice at the end of the scene where Whitman gets the ebony blade. Turns out that voice was Blade. So I think we are kind of building with Blade, and I'm just going to say it right now, I think we're going to get MI13 or Excalibur. I think what we're building to is Excalibur or MI13. So I'm more... Because remember, a lot of people forget this, even I forgot this, is that Blade's actually British. Blade's actually was born in, I think, London. It was either Brighton or London. But he was born in Britain. So he is actually British. And he is a member of MI13 and kind of considered a member of Excalibur. So him, Black Knight, I think that's building to something right there. And who knows, maybe we'll get Captain Britain, maybe Kitty Pryde and Nightcrawler? Maybe? Anyway. Or Pete Wisdom. That'd be cool. I mean, we gotta get those mutants in here somehow. Anyway, so I'm rambling at this point, but I really did enjoy Eternals. So speaking of Marvel movies, let's move on to number 7 with Shang-Chi, Legend of the Ten Rings. This was a phenomenal movie. I got to see this late on Disney+. I think the action sequences are fantastic. There's just some great storytelling in here, and it's a movie I'm really excited to see where it goes with these characters. This is much like with Eternals, this was a character that not a lot of people knew of, and then they do something with it, and it's like, wow, this is really good. Like, this movie comes out swinging, because it's like, yeah, people knew about, like when this started, I was like, people had oh, okay, Thor, Iron Man, okay, guy who doesn't have superpowers, he's just a really good fighter, and ancient aliens, alright, whatever. So, to do movies about them was a ballsy move, and again, I think Marvel, again, I have to reiterate, is that in order for them to continue, they got to keep making these ballsy moves, and I think they've been so far really well. I think they've been received very well, and I think they've been really hitting it out of the park. But yeah, so let's get off Marvel for a bit and talk about number 6, and that is Halloween Kills. This is probably my most controversial one, that people are like, really? Halloween Kills got on here, and it's like high on the list? Yeah, well, it's my list. I know Halloween Kills has been diverse, has been kind of like getting that Last Jedi treatment of being diversive amongst the fans. I enjoy it because, to be fair, Halloween Kills is kind of like how I view Last Jedi, where it's really going to depend on how they finish the trilogy, if that's going to hurt or help it. With Last Jedi, you guys know that Last Jedi was my favorite Star Wars movie for the longest time, and then Rise of Skywalker killed it for me, because that movie did well out of its way to retcon literally everything about the first movie, so it felt superfluous by the end of it. So, yeah, I think this all depends on the precipice of this movie is going to age well, depending on how well Halloween Ends does, or it's going to be a little hurt. But for a Michael Myers movie, this movie, like I said in my review on Patreon, this is more or less this movie should have been called Michael Myers Does Stat Padding, because I think he's close, if not tied or even beat Jason Voorhees' body count with this movie, and we still got one more movie to go, so he could probably reach that. I do think the ending is a little more like, wow, that came out of nowhere, but it did its job of making Michael Myers terrifying it lived up to the Halloween Kills title, and again, it's a slasher movie. I don't need... Sometimes I just want a slasher movie. We got our cool story with Halloween 2018. I wanted a bloodbath for the next movie. When I heard a title called Halloween Kills, I was expecting a bloodbath. I got a bloodbath. Now it's time to see how Halloween, well, ends. And hopefully this can be a really good trilogy. So, yeah. Halloween Kills. Next up at number 5, this is a movie I had no expectations for, and it just broke everything for me. Malignant. Malignant is James Wan's new movie, which if you haven't already, go on HBO Max and go see this movie, like, right now. This is a movie I had, like, alright, I'll watch Malignant. Who knows, it'll be fun. It'll be fine, maybe I get to make fun of it. And then I watched it, I was like, oh my god, this is really damn good. When I figured out, like, this is supposed to be, like, a reference to, like, giallo films, like, a lot of, like, Dario Argento's films, or a lot of those great Italian horror movies, like, just from camera angles and lighting, I was like, oh, I get it now! Now I get why it's weird! That's what really got me excited for it. And then, literally, there's 2 scenes of, like, when the Doom music kicks in moments. Like, there's 2 moments, and it's awesome. If nothing else, watch it for those 2 scenes of just a balls-to-the-wall action sequence, and I'm like, god damn. The character of Gabriel is really interesting, the killer, and his story, I don't want to spoil that. But there's just so many good camera angles. I think the cinematography is just great in here. I do think the story is a bit weird, and it doesn't explain everything, but again, it's really, I think this movie, to be fair, is going to be a lot like James Wan's been compared a lot to this era's John Carpenter, and while I think that's a little overhyped, I will say that there is a good comparison between this and some of Carpenter's other work. Like, take for instance Prince of Darkness. I think this is going to be considered James Wan's Prince of Darkness in that no one's going to get it from the beginning of the, the same thing with The Thing. The Thing, or Prince of Darkness, or Mouth of Madness, or At the Mouth of Madness. I think this is going to be in the same vein of that, where no one's going to get it firsthand, but 5-10 years, you're going to see a huge cult following for Malignant. I guarantee that's what's going to happen, is that it's going to go the way of Wan's, lesser-known work, and people are like, I don't get it, I don't like it. And then when people watch it again, it's like, oh, I get it now. This is a lot of fun. So I think that's going to be a lot like go the route of The Thing or Prince of Darkness, where it's not like now, but give it a little time, it's going to age really well. Yeah. So, moving on to our next film, which is also a horror film, at number 4, we have A Quiet Place Part 2. A Quiet Place Part 2 was a sequel that I was dying to see, and it lived up to every expectation. The acting is phenomenal. I think the scares are just as good, if not better, in this film. There's just so much great human emotion in here from all the actors who barely say any words, and it's a lot of there is they do more at the world, and it's actually I kind of thought this is a really nice, because Cillian Murphy's character and the girl go on a trip together. I was like, this is the closest we'll ever, until we see the Pedro Pascal Last of Us TV series coming to HBO. I think it's HBO. This is the closest we'll ever get to a Last of Us movie. It literally becomes a Last of Us movie, but instead of the clickers, it's aliens, who do kind of click now that I think about it. So, number 4, Quiet Place Part 2. 3 horror movies in a row, so let's see who's in our top 3. So, movie getting the bronze medal is The Suicide Squad. I was thinking of having Zack Snyder's Justice League movie in here, but I kind of was like, I don't know. Because it's a movie that's a cut of a movie we already saw, but it's also vastly different, so I was like, I put it in honorable mentions, because I was kind of conflicted on it. But The Suicide Squad, this is probably one of the best DC movies ever. The humor is great, the action is great, the storytelling and characters, all of it's great. it definitely makes you forget about David Ayer's movie. I don't care about a David Ayer cut. I've never cared about that. Because now it's like definitive, like, I don't need a David Ayer cut. I got the better version right here. That's literally, you've now made the Wish.com of this movie, David Ayer, as far as I'm concerned. It's a great movie. Again, it's a movie I didn't have any expectation for, but then when I watched it, I was like, God, this exceeded all of my expectations when I was not so high on it. Yeah. And I'm interested to see what they do with Peacemaker. Hopefully they'll make more of this movie. Hopefully you get more obscure characters. I really loved it. So let's move on to number 2. And number 2 was a movie that held the number 1 spot from the start of the year all the way to the near to the end until something else, you probably guess what it is, took its place, and that's Psycho Goreman. Psycho Goreman was this low-budget love letter to horror, tokusatsu, and everything I love about movies. This movie is trashy, it's low budget, the acting's not great, but god damn it, do I love it. This movie, like I said, is a love letter to everyone who loved like Power Rangers and Godzilla and like 80s movies in general. This is your love letter, and it's a gore fest of a film. I don't like, the whole thing is like, imagine, the best way I can describe it is imagine Rick and Morty raped E.T., which would not, like, feels like an episode of Rick and Morty now that I think about it. That's the best way to describe this movie. It's a gore fest and just bloodbath of a film, but it's so much fun too. And this was the movie I was like, this is the movie every other movie is going to have to compete for the number 1 spot in this until the end of the year. And then this movie came along, and you already know what it is: Spider-Man No Way Home. And I was really against the idea at first of making Spider-Man No Way Home the number 1 film. But the more I thought about it, it wasn't like just the nostalgia. And in fact, the nostalgia didn't really play a part. Like, it's not like a nostalgia bait movie, which I was expecting to be and hate it for it. But no, the nostalgia actually helps accentuate the movie. And it tells a great story with it. I think this is Tom Holland's best Spider-Man movie. The chemistry between him and Zendaya and all the other actors around them, like Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, that's all great. I think there is just so much emotion in this film, and some of the best action I've seen in a Spider-Man movie in a while. And this feels like, I still say that Into the Spider-Verse is my favorite Spider-Man movie, with Spider-Man 2, the Raimi movies, at number 2. But this one would probably be number 3. Like, this is like my 3rd favorite Spider-Man movie. So, yeah. I still don't have any faith in the next Venom movie or Morbius, but I'll go watch them. Like, I'm curious to see where it all goes now. So, my number 1. And again, I was so against it because I was like, oh man, it's a Spider-Man movie, it's nostalgia bait, and people are going to think that I'm just doing it because of nostalgia bait. And I was like, the more I thought about it, I was like, the nostalgia works for the story. It's not trying to be like, stop everything, reference to other movie. It helps with the film. It does have 1 or 2 of those moments, but it's not like overt, like some of like the sequel trilogy of Star Wars, or some of the stuff in the first 2 Abrams Star Trek movies. It's almost like J.J. Abrams can't do a movie without like Star Trek or Star Wars without throwing out nostalgia to try to blind somebody. Go figure. Anyway, so there you go, guys. That is pretty much my top 10 movies of 2021. It was a good year for movies. To be fair, I didn't see every single movie out here, and I will say that there are some honorable mentions I want to throw out, like Candyman. I recently rewatched that movie, and while I think the third act kills that movie, I think now I have a little more appreciation for it, but that third act just murdered the whole movie. Snyder's Justice League, I wanted to put it in here, at least an honorable mention, because that film, like, again, I think there are problems with it, but it's a hell of a lot better than the product we got in 2017. Willy's Wonderland, that's another one that I really enjoyed, of just how batshit bonkers it is. I'm looking at the other movies I really enjoyed. Well, that's actually it. The rest of the movies ranged... Well, Black Widow, too. I like that one. Antlers was another one. Good Wendigo movie. About time we had that. But really, like, all the other movies I kind of watched range from to blech. Anyway, so you guys tell me in the comments below, what are your top 10 movies of 2021? Are you guys... and again, I have to stress, if a movie was on here that you think should have been higher or lower or not at all on the list, that's totally fine. I'm always excited to hear you guys' movie lists. But yeah, hope you all have a great Christmas. If you haven't already, if you want to see reviews for these movies, hit the link below to my Patreon and see those. That's where the movie reviews are over there. But other than that, just comment below, let me know what your top 10 movies are for 2021. And I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the multiverse. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.